Welcome, everybody, to Meeple Mentor. I am Jared, and today we will be interviewing with Dr. Tom Black, who's with us today to talk about what selling Monopoly or playing these early editions and variants that we saw of Monopoly type board games were like in the early 80s. He was quite influential in that. So I'm very happy to have our guest. How are you doing today, Dr. Black?
I'm doing great. You know, um, Life is good. I'm on quarantine, and so I'm getting a lot done because I'm not driving around, to
Yeah,
meetings.
absolutely. I am as well, and I'm trying to do everything I can to just keep going and doing the best I can with the kids at home and stuff. So I'm there with you. Now you have quite an interesting story, and you are the example of the American dream if I've ever heard it. Can you give our viewers a quick summary of kind of where you came from and where you are now?
Yeah, okay. So when I was born, my parents were living in a railroad boxcar. They converted into a home. My brother and sister and I were in one end, and my parents were in the other. We did everything in the middle except go to the bathroom. We did that outside. Then I really didn't realize I was poor until about sixth grade. And then some kids made fun of my clothes. I went home, had an emotional meeting with my parents, and they said that I lived in America. I could do whatever I wanted to do. And so they challenged me to be the first person in our family to graduate from high school. So I did. And then I graduated from college and came to Nashville, where I am today, and went to work for a company that sold books door to door. And I'd worked with them all through college. And our mutual friend, Bruce, had done that too. That's how I originally connected to Bruce. And then, anyway, um, after that, I became an entrepreneur basically. And, I built some businesses. I've been the founder, co founder of three businesses that have, started from basically nothing and got out to be publicly traded companies, big national companies. And currently, the last 10 years, I've been an investor in private businesses, but haven't been running any of them. And I've been doing coaching. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs. I coach a lot of salespeople, coach a lot of sales managers, and for all size companies.
Well,
That
that's
good enough,
amazing.
Jared?
That is quite a story, and it's very just inspiring to hear, kind of the rags to riches story that, people have always heard about, but to be able to meet somebody who's really made it and made a success, from having such humble beginnings.
Yeah, well, I didn't do it by myself. Obviously, a lot of people helped me, and I've been blessed in that way. So, yeah, but this is where I am today, and I'm just trying to give back as much as I can through this coaching mentorship program that I started about, yeah, it's about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Have you written any books as well, or do you just primarily do coaching in person, or?
Yeah, I've written three books. The first one was a bestseller. It was called The Boxcar Millionaire, and it was my selling system. And it was just basically a description of how I built these businesses through professionalizing the sales approach. And recently I wrote one called Doing Business at the Table, which is just an explanation for people to how to conduct a business or lunch dinner most successfully. That seems like it'd be easy, but it's a 175-page book.
Oh, I can imagine. My background too, when I was in college, I did nothing but sales, and I had a job where I did door to door, and we would sell the AT&T Uverse internet TV. But that was, I think, I learned so much, just for my own like transferable skills and just having more confidence talking to people. Things like that too were just amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, so you are a very determined person, and as any salesperson has to be successful. But of course, you face more than your share of hurdles to overcome than anyone would could ask for. So my question is, what kept you going?
I was just reading an article before our call today, Jared, and it was about Frankel's experience in the prisoner war camps in World War II. And
Viktor
he said,
Frankl.
yeah, he says, if you can find the why, you can endure almost anything. And so, I think that I wanted to be in a position where I didn't have to say no to any material things. And I also think I wanted to be in a position where I was the best at what I did. I just had a burning desire to get better.
Yeah, it's got to be passionate to be able to push through all the negative stuff that you're hit with daily, and in even door-to-door sales, the weather could be bad, and you still got to do your job.
Yeah.
So you've become a successful entrepreneur and a CEO of multiple companies. So what are you all involved in today if you're not running the companies? What do you typically do and work on?
So, almost every day I have 4 or 5 coaching calls with different kinds of people. Today I had one with a younger entrepreneur who's building his business. And, after we get off, I'll have a call with a woman who is building a nanny recruiting business. And I own part of several businesses. And so I coach those salespeople. So I have calls with those salespeople every week. So those are the kind of things I've been doing with my time.
Has the quarantine affected any of that, or it's kind of the same?
Really, Jared, it hadn't. Sometimes I would have met with those people in person if they were in Nashville, but for the most part, it's been fine. And I think it's changed the way I want to do business. I do want to spend less time driving to meetings and more time like this, on Skype or Zoom or something.
Sure. I think we're going to see a lot of changes in sort of how our economy looks once we all kind of get back to normal. It's going to be a new normal for sure.
And who's going to lease space? I mean, I have a business I co-founded about 10 years ago, and, we've been growing rapidly and we've been adding space. We won't add space again for a long time because we'll just send them home.
Yeah.
They worked perfectly well at home this time, and they can work perfectly well at home full time. And we surveyed them. We have about 180 employees. We surveyed them, and only 20% wanted to come back to the office.
Changing topics back to Monopoly if we can.
Games. Let's
So
talk about games.
let's talk about games. So in the early 80s, you were tasked with selling Monopoly to cities in America, and it was known as All About Town. Can you describe what your role was and what that was all about?
Yeah, so we would go to, I was running that division of the company. And so what we do is go to a chamber of commerce or a bank or a Better Business Bureau or some center of influence in a community. And we would get them to sponsor a board game, just like Monopoly, but with the names of the businesses in the town versus the names of the Monopoly properties. There's no more Boardwalk. Now it's First National Bank. And there's no more Park Place. It's Coco's Hair Salon. And then we would publish we'd publish the game and then sell it and pay the sponsoring entity a commission for sponsoring it.
That's amazing. Did you get to do any designing for the game boards at all?
No, I was not an artist. I wasn't a game board designer. I didn't design the pieces in the game. None of those things came to me. Certainly, I've was in the plant several times where they did it and met with the artists who were doing the game board and the game design, but I didn't participate in it as an active participant.
And that was through Windsor Publications?
Yeah, Windsor Publishing.
So when you visited cities, was that all over the country or what was your area?
No, it was national. We did it all over the United States. We probably did 300 cities before I left that business.
What was the first town that signed on to do one of these?
Oh, it was in West Virginia, Frostburg, West Virginia. It's a little town. We went out there and did Frostburg, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce.
Wow, I've not heard of Frostburg, but I'm gonna check eBay if anyone's listing that one.
It might have been Frostburg, Virginia, but if it was right on the border of West Virginia. We flew into West Virginia to get there. Frostburg, I'm not sure.
Was it difficult to explain to them what you were trying to do with this game?
No, I mean, everybody got it and everybody thought it was a great idea in those days. No one had done it before. And so I mean, really, it wasn't that difficult to do a game for every city because there was always some business owner that had a big enough ego that they'd like to have their business as a square on a game board, right?
Right. And so it's they signed on and you got permission to put their logo and information on the board. Plus, a lot of these had these coupons right on the back that they could be used at all these local businesses. And I'm looking at the ones I have in my copy, and they're all expired in 1981. So
Yeah. So it was Frostburg, Maryland. It was out there in that tri-state area, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, down at the right out there is where it was. Yeah. Sometimes we flew into Pittsburgh and drove down.
So who all did you have to meet with to get approval, to make a game based on a city?
The only person was the sponsoring entity. Whoever sponsored it, we did the game. It wasn't an accurate map of the city. And so it was basically just a method of advertising. It was be like you or I decide we want to do a game on a community. We could go do it without sponsorship. But of course, the sponsorship added credibility to what we were doing.
And so it looked like this was similar to Monopoly, but it had its own kind of rules and stuff. And I saw there was chance and community chest. Is that right? How did the cards work?
Well, exactly the same as Monopoly. There were chance and community chest, only instead of chance and community chest on the back of the card, it had the name of the business on the back of the card. So one business would sponsor all the community chest cards, one business would sponsor all the chance cards.
So was there any problem when you put on a business's name on a card that's like a negative? It's like you have to pay $100. Thanks, First Union or something.
Sure,
So did,
absolutely.
did you ever see
Negative and
any
positive.
any
But
problem with?
no, they didn't have a problem with it. They were glad to be on the game.
And after it was produced, I'm sure they could all just display it in their storefronts and sell copies there. So you had an immediate distribution.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. The business owner had the game, many times would give them as Christmas gifts to their best customers, and pretty unique Christmas gift, and it wasn't that expensive. And or they would sell them out of their business and recover the cost of their advertising.
And so each map of these is completely unique, and it's kind of modular boards, but they fit together to be a representative of the downtown typically of these cities.
Yeah.
Was there any streets that were not included, or any problem with getting the map made?
Jared, I just don't remember that much of it. But like I said, that was the design part of it, and so the team designed it. But you've seen maps where they sell advertising on the maps of downtowns that are caricatures. They're not exactly accurate, but close, right?
Pretty
That's
close
sort of, I think, the same way they tried to do it.
to make it a functional game.
Yeah.
At the time, did you have an interest in board games, or was it just a sales job for you?
Now, who didn't have an interest in board games? Everybody loves board games,
There you
right?
go. Of
Yeah,
course.
I love Monopoly. I mean, I never could get anybody to play it with me because it lasted so long.
Yep.
I remember playing it as a kid and playing it in college, and then we all got too busy for Monopoly.
Well, today there's tons of games and new games coming out every year. A lot of them crowdfunded.
Yeah,
Um, and we've really come a long way since the days of Monopoly, where there's more strategy involved. There's more decisions to make. Whereas in Monopoly, of course, you're guided by the dice roll and the cards that you draw. Do you still play any board games today?
I play a lot of games, but I don't play any board games today. Oh, that's a lie. I play Scrabble all the time I don't think of it as a board game because I play it on the screen. Yeah, man,
Yep.
I play Scrabble all the time. I probably
Yep.
play 20 games of Scrabble a week.
That's amazing.
Play a couple of card games, play cribbage. You may or may not know that game, and I play solitaire.
hmm So it's good to hear that you're still getting some gaming in. Did you get to play any of these all about town games in the 80s with
Oh,
anybody?
sure. Obviously, we played them quite a bit actually, just to make sure they made sense and that it followed some logical flow.
Did you have a favorite town game? Not necessarily because of the town, but if by playing the game you liked the map or you liked the way it looked.
Not really. I can't say that I had a favorite. If I had a favorite, I would have picked it because of Nashville, as opposed to, the game board itself.
Yep. Do you still keep any copies for yourself?
I have the Nashville game still in shrink wrap.
I don't know how much these are worth today, which is why I'm like, "Ah, I don't know if I want to open these and, maybe damage them, but
They're only worth what somebody will pay.
it's true. So what is the connection with Monopoly? Because I know it's Monopoly was Parker Brothers,
Yeah.
and so Windsor Publication was making these, which is similar but not, right? So what was the influence of Monopoly, and was Parker Brothers aware of this game?
Oh, sure. I know they were, but we were not infringing on anything. We didn't use the name Monopoly. We didn't use Chance. We didn't use Boardwalk. We didn't use Community Chess. We didn't use any of the trademarked elements of the Monopoly game. And, any board game where you roll dice has a similarity to itself, to each other. But after that, it pretty much ends in terms of what we were doing.
So for the viewers who haven't seen or played All About Town, can you give like a quick summary of like how you generally play or what the differences are than regular Monopoly?
Well, I don't know that there are that many differences in regular Monopoly. You roll the dice and you try to get around the board, right? And you're buying properties and there's money in there, and it's basically the same game.
Now, when I looked at the maps, it looked like there were some one-way roads and things where you kind of take varying paths, which I thought was a very unique version, if you want to look at that, whereas Monopoly is just one circular, consistent path.
Yeah. I don't think that a lot of people bought the game because they wanted to play it, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
They played it two or three, four times, and then they went to another board game probably. But they bought it because of the uniqueness of it and because they wanted to have a game with their name on the board, basically.
Sure. And if you're
There
from that town, that's sort of pride and
you
history.
go. Yeah. There you
Now,
go.
these boxes all have very interesting artwork that's
Yeah.
representative of
Each
what
each coat.
what you find in the city. I'm curious, do you know who did all the art?
Oh yeah. We had local artists usually and they would give us what they thought would be representative of the town in terms of landmarks. And then each board game was designed by that person. And if we couldn't find a local artist, then we had artists, obviously, that we used, and they did the cover based on elements that were popular in the city.
That's awesome. It's
So
cool to be able to involve everybody like that.
yeah. So I was looking at the cover the other day. You guys got me interested, and I was going, boy, nobody would know what any of this stuff meant anymore because that was done in the 80s.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's like
those
another one here,
buildings
the
aren't even
Nashville
there.
one.
Yeah, those buildings. I mean, the Ryman Auditorium, obviously, and Yakety Sax, and um, that is Minnie Pearl's hat. Those
Hmm.
are things people wouldn't probably recognize today. Today we would have, the Country Music Hall of Fame on there, and
Hmm.
all the new development downtown, the Titans and the Predators, and those didn't
Because the
exist.
majority of these were made in like 81, 82.
Yeah.
Uh, so how many of these All About Town games were made as far as the different cities represented?
Well, we did over 200 cities.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know how many games that would represent.
Yeah. Were there any cities that said no or that you didn't want to even try?
No, the truth of the matter is we never ran out of cities to go to. Sure, the Chamber of Commerce in a particular city might say, no, we don't want you to do it, right?
Right.
Or First National Bank might say, I don't want to sponsor it. But no, in terms of finding a sponsor, we always could find a sponsor.
Were there any notable cities as far as the chamber that said, no, we don't want this at all, and make sure you don't,
No,
represent our city?
no,
Well, that's
they,
good.
they didn't have that kind of authority. And, they were trying to promote business in most cases.
Well, it's an easy sell if you approach it like that. I can see why they would all say yes.
Yeah.
And as I look through some of these opened boxes that have the rules in it, there's just like a local restaurant. The rule book is plastered with ads.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how this kind of got made, and there's so many editions. And now they all say limited edition. Well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that we're not printing it again, or what?
Yeah, we only printed them once.
Yeah,
We printed them on the basis of the population in the city and pre-orders. We took pre-orders.
interesting. As you're trying to get the approvals and the sign-ons to this game, were there any other known variants of board games, like other Monopoly
We
variants people
we
see?
never found any. That's the weirdest thing. We never found any competitors for what we were doing. I mean, there must be 20 companies that will print ads around a city map, and sell it that way. And I have a friend that owns part of one here in town that goes to chambers of commerce and does directories and does newcomers guides. And there's plenty of competitors for that, but we never found a competitor for the game.
Interesting. Because now there's hundreds and hundreds of Monopoly variants, the name brand variants, including, they've got the city too, like Dallas-opoly and
Yeah. I've seen
Chicago-opoly.
those. Yeah, but those all came a decade later.
So do you think that you guys had an impact on how Monopoly saw where it could expand?
No, we didn't have an impact on anybody but the city and the people that bought the game. Oh yes, we changed the world. Not really.
Of course you did.
Yeah,
You got
not
to you
really.
just say yes.
Yeah, okay.
So as you went through this experience, and I'm sure you made like a lot of contacts and new friends from just traveling, what do you think that your best lessons learned or skills that you gained during that experience were?
I think it was my first real experience in business to business sales. And so I think I learned a lot about dealing with the local business person, and I gained an appreciation for the local business person. Most of America is made up of companies under 50 employees. And, small businesses employ more people than the big businesses do as a number. And I think I gained an appreciation for that entrepreneur, that person that was driving the American economy, really.
So what I'm hearing you say is this experience has inspired you to be your own entrepreneur.
Well, it certainly contributed to it, absolutely.
What was your first business that you started?
I had a local coupon book, and the man that I spent my career with basically wanted me to do coupons for his company that he could provide to the banks as an extra benefit of doing business with him. So the coupons went to the bank's customers. And he ended up just acquiring that business and hiring me. And that was a wild ride. We went from 9 million in sales to a billion. Publicly traded, New York Stock Exchange, Fortune,
Was that
S&P.
Madison Financial?
Yeah, S&P 500 company. Yeah, pretty exciting. But the local advertising, the local coupons, right? Those were just an extension of what I'd been doing before, but I was doing it for myself.
So leading up to, being an entrepreneur and sort of working your way through sales as a salesperson, would you do anything differently if you were to do it again?
I would think bigger. I mean, I've made plenty of money. I mean, I made over $200 million in my life. But I will tell you, I would have thought bigger, because I think if I would have thought bigger, I could have made a billion, but I didn't think bigger. And now the fire is basically out of my gut to work 90 hours a week. And, that's what a person should do if they want to build their own business, is work 90 hours a week until it's self-sustaining.
So I saw on your website that you were a wine enthusiast.
Oh, yeah, you can ask me about that.
So I don't know if you know this, there's two really popular board games themed around making wine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I thought you might be interested to look into that. One's called Vinhos, and the other one's called Viticulture. And they're both about, growing your vineyard and, pressing the grapes, making the wine, and then selling the orders, making deliveries and stuff like that, making money. Both are fantastic. So if you're as much of a wine person as I think you may be, you might enjoy this as your first foray into in modern board gaming. I think Viticulture, for example, came out in 2010, I think.
There are a couple of flashcard kind of games, where you just ask the question and then see who knows the answer about wine. So they're educational. And I've
Yeah.
got a couple of those kind of games, but I've never had a board game.
May look into it. It's a
Yeah,
fun
sure.
game to play while you're having a glass of wine, and you have your friends over who already like wine. It's a nice, way to,
Yeah,
you know,
it's cool. I like
yeah.
it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the chat today, and hopefully we'll get to stay in touch. But be safe during this quarantine, and
It's been great talking to you today.
yeah, this has been awesome. I'm really glad that you were able to meet with me and sort of just reminisce about the
Yeah.
early '80s, the old days of board games before there were hundreds of Monopoly variants.
Yeah. If you or your family get to Nashville, let me know and I'll buy you a cup of coffee or lunch or something.
That sounds good. I will let you know.